Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to a new playthrough on the channel. Evening from Sweden, evening from southeast Wisconsin, Magnus. I'm sure it's very, very late where you are right now. But what we're up to tonight, after our disastrous attempt at building a new suburb in Wisconsin, and Doug comes by as well, was looking into this. So this looks like perfect timing, as we're playing game number 8 on my War Room list, as we're playing Defending America, Intercepting the Amerika Bombers by Compass Games. Christoph now joins us here as well. In this game, we're set in an alternate timeline of World War II Europe, where the Germans have won the war in Europe, and now they're turning their attention to the United States. So one of the main way they do that is they invest in long-range bombers, namely the Amerika bomber, and they take a forward base in the Azores under heavy pressure from Portugal. So that's how they're attacking the United States mainland, mostly the East Coast, and some places a little bit further west than that. So that's what we're doing here tonight. 12:20 a.m. Just finished your shift at the hotel. So yeah, I'd be dead tired at that point. I generally try to be asleep at 12:20 a.m., but not all of us have that luxury. Anyway, as far as how to get into this game, if you've played through anything by Greg Smith, like The Hunters or some of the other games by him, Night Fighter Ace, Interceptor Ace, you'll pick up on how this one works very quickly. Just the fact that you got some differences since we're in control of the Interceptor rather than the bomber on the bombing raid. So, rather than ramble a lot more on this, let's say we jump right into the action. The first thing we need to do here is we need to roll for our target, where the raid is targeting. So we've got 2 different colored dice here. We're going to be rolling this in a D66 style, aka APA style, for those of you who have played those games. We'll be reading black, then white, and I need to get one more thing. I need to get my current target shit out as well. Target zone, that'll do nicely. So we've got a raid chart up here that we'll be drawing from, we'll be rolling on. So since we're still in our first sortie for May 1947, we're going to be rolling on April to June. So let's see where we're targeting. That's a 21. So we're looking at Bausch and Lomb in Rochester, New York. Just going to make some notes here. Is that zone 5 or 6? That is zone 6. So now that I found the chit, we'll put that down there as our target zone. So now we have an option as the raid moves forward. Each time the raid moves, we can take off. So in zone 1, I usually try to make the interception around about zone 4 or 5, mainly because 5 starts to turn into automatic contact rolls. And we have to be careful because fuel is very much a consideration. So zone 1, we're not going to lift off. The raid will move into zone 2. We're still not going to lift off yet. Zone 3, now we are going to lift off. So that'll send us that'll take us a turn to lift off. Zone 4, as the raid moves in, we're going to move in as well, spending a point of fuel. We have to roll for interception. And we have to roll a 2d6 that we're summing here on the interception chart. Let me bring this in. I'll bring this a little bit more in. I'll do a little bit more of a teaching playthrough than I normally do, since Doug's already voiced that he was looking into this. So I'm trying to leave everything shown as much as possible, or mostly intact where I can set it back up. So we've got our usual skill sheets up here, as far as our pilot skills go, experience points, prestige, all that. What I'm trying to show off, though, without sending the chits flying, is the interception chart. So we'll be rolling 2d6 and adding them together on the interception chart for April to June 1947. Let me get these reset, and then we'll roll for our interception. And the research development I'm working on is improved fuel tanks. So fuel tank hits receive a -1 DRM on chart B4. We can roll for those at the end of the month. But let's see what kind of interception we've got in zone 4. That's a 10, which is no contact in zone 4. So the raid will go into zone 5. Doug, are you at least able to see the board there? I'll try to zoom in a little bit later on. We'll try to do a few different sorties here. So we'll move over to zone 5, which I'll show off the plane as well, where we've got spaces for the flight deck, our current base, our unit. This is the track that I'm paying attention to right now, is the endurance track, where depending on how long we're up in the air, we might eventually have to go land. So I'm going to move that down. So now we have one unit away from must land. But since we're in zone 5, now we're going to make contact. A 5, we're making contact with an ME-364. Okay, good. Glad to know you can see the board. So zone 4, we lifted off. No contact. And now we've got an ME, what did we say, 364 coming at us. So now I'm going to go digging through, I think I put all my bombers up here under the raid chart. Perfect. So now we're going to set up the ME-364. You can see the various places that will have damage. So I'll actually put that off to the side. And they're attacking with a defensive firepower of 7, which we'll need that when we go to roll for bomber defensive fire later on. What I'm interested in now, though, is in the position chart. So on the position chart, we'll be rolling a, let's see, what's the roll here? It's a D10 for where it's coming in from, and a D6 for altitude. So we'll roll that up. So we've got an ME-364, I've got the D10, and the D6 right here. So we're looking at approach 8, and 4 is going to be at medium altitude. All right, is there anything else I need there? Oh, right, we do need to find the chit for the ME-364. Which actually, I think we need so we're at approach 8, and I need to find a medium altitude chit in here. Actually, I don't think medium altitude is the one I need. I think the chits in here are going to be for low or high altitude. Let me just see for giggles if I've got any altitude chits in here. Parachute for skills, but that's not exactly what I'm after here. Atomic bomb. And no, we don't have one. Okay, I think we can probably deal around that though. So I'm just going to grab an extra chit here, and I'll explain what that translates to in a minute. So at our current range, which is over here. Okay. So from the fighter and the bomber, I was going to say I had the ME-364 out. So that position chart is showing us, actually, I think this is fine. So if we do that, put the bomber right there. So we're at medium altitude, which means there are modifiers here, but in this case, we don't have any modifiers for our specific bombers. What we do have to roll for, though, is we are going to use a point of ammo from our forward caliber guns. We got a defensive firepower of 6. So we'll be rolling for fighter damage to the bombers using the 6 column on the firepower. So that's going to be a 2d6 roll, and we're summing these unlike in an APA style roll. So let's see what we get here. That's a 3, which is probably a terrible roll. So actually a 6 is 1 hit, but I think there's a range modifier. That's only on close hits, so -1 hit, random hit, bomber out of formation, and interceptors at long range. So let me just double check, but I'm pretty sure that's going to wipe. I'm pretty sure being at long range is going to wipe out the hit that we were going to do. Just double check that real quick. Range effects on bomber combat. At long range, interceptor generates 1 less random hit. Okay, so we do 8 medium altitude. At long range, we didn't deal any hits out, which is unfortunate. So now with defensive fire, we're going to roll 1d6 on the bomber defensive fire, and the ME-364 has a defensive firepower of 7. So we're rolling on this row for the firepower to see how many hits it deals out. And we want to see a 1 or a 4 here for no... Actually, 1, 2, or 4 means we don't take any hits. That's a 1, so that's a miss for them as well. Now we'll move into medium range. So we're at long range. Now we'll move into medium range. We'll use another shot from the 50 caliber forward guns. That's a 7 from firepower of 6. This time we're going to deal out 3 hits. And no modifiers for medium range. So now, I forgot, we have to designate where we're aiming. So we have to designate where we're aiming first. I will re-roll that. So we'll say we were aiming at the airframe. So we're aiming at the airframe. We'll roll again with firepower 7. Actually, firepower 6. That's a 5, which now is a miss now that I actually remembered to designate. So that's a miss. And now we have to roll for defensive fire, which once again, they've got a defensive fire of a 7. That's a 3. So on a firepower of 7, they're going to deal out 2 hits. And the way we roll for hits on the fighter is we've got our D60, we've got our fighter damage chart right up here, which is going to be a D66 roll. So once again, we'll use black as the 10s, white as the 1s. So the first hit that we roll, that's a 63, which turns into an ejection seat hit. And each hit will do some kind of damage to it. So it damages ejection seat in this case, and I'll show it here, negates the -1 dice roll modifier when rolling to parachute. Which is very unfortunate, but we have to roll for another hit. This time it's a 56. 56 is an IFF system, which I don't think our Bearcat has. So the IFF system is a hit. So we'll grab a damaged chit for that. I'm keeping track of the damage off shot. The IFF system does not look like it has a Does not look like it's got anything specific on here. It's probably a communication system of some kind. And of course, it's not explained on the plane, so that's all kinds of delightful. So now we'll move into close range, still aiming at the airframe. So now we want our D6 roll, D60, or D12 roll, I should say, 2D6. That's an 8, which this time is actually going to deal out 3 + 1, 4 hits. And since we were aiming at the airframe this time, we'll roll a D10 and take off the aim at airframe column on the table. So our first hit, that's a 5, so that's a controls hit. So that's a control surfaces hit for 1. Next hit, 6, is the gunner's hit. So we have to determine... okay. So the gunner's basically assumed disabled in this case. Actually, we can get a 1 for the gunner hit. And then the last hit, that's an 8, which in this case is a port engine hit. So we have to we'll roll a D3 to determine which engine gets hit. So a 1, 2 is going to be the outboard, 3, 4 center, 5, 6 inboard. That's a 4, so we're hitting the center engine. Which we're probably not going to be able to do anything with that because we will have to break off after this and go land. Because we're not going to be able to pursue them into Zone 6 without having to take some kind of water landing. So now we're rolling again on our bomber defensive fire. And again, 1. Actually now only a 1. Yeah, only a 1 or a 4 are hits, but they're +1. It's +1 because we're in close range now. That's a 2, which as we see here is a 1 + 1, 2 hits. So let's see what we get for the bomber damage. A 13 is a starboard wing hit. That's a starboard wing hit for us. And the second hit that we're going to take is a 46. Those are the forward guns. So if we weren't already planning on landing, anyway, the forward guns would definitely force me down, because at this point we now couldn't use anything anyway. So we're going to have to let the ME-364 go, and then try to land this bird. So ultimately that ME-364 will get through to bomb, and we're going to try to land this thing. And I forgot to roll for... Oh no, it looks like we roll for weather when we come over. So landing, we'll start off with weather. That's a single D10 roll. I'll see if I can bring the board. I'll see if I can bring the weather side of the board in shot. So the roll for weather is going to be based on chart B9. So we need a D10 for that. All right, that is an 8, which is actually it's not a problem. It's just poor weather. So it'll mean on our 2d6 roll on the landing chart, we have to add a +1. So that's a 2d6 roll. 5 + 1 is 6. That's a safe landing. Right? Yes. poor. Landing safe. Okay, so that didn't exactly go according to plan for us. We'll bring the incoming raid back. We'll go back to base once again. So that was actually a pretty bad raid. P-80B, I believe that means that plane now becomes available to us. I'm just looking at some of the notes on the sortie log. P-80B, yep, that means it becomes... So just in case you're wondering what I'm looking at, on the sortie log, in the notes section, there's a section here for P-80B. That means that bomber now comes available to us if we want to try to transfer into it. But given that we've been able to do exactly diddly squat about the Amerika bombers coming through, we're not going to be doing anything there. But everything will get repaired. We'll go back up to full ammo. Also to full endurance. Alright, where are my other damaged chits? Right there. Okay, just want to make sure that we're not potentially getting sacked for anything, since we've been having a very terrible time here with the... Because we've been having an absolutely terrible time shooting anything down. Because I know there are some other... I know there are other games in these systems where if you don't shoot anything down, you eventually get sacked. I want to make sure that's not the case here. It is not. Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure of that. Okay, so we'll go for our second sortie for May 1947. And Doug, for your benefit, I'll go through this sortie very slowly so you can see how a full sortie actually works. So once again, we need the raid chart front and center here. It might be a little bit hard to see, but there is a list of targets on here that will be rolling 11 to 66 for. Those are where the Germans are targeting, not where we're going. Well, kind of where we're going, but more about where the Germans are going. So let's see what our roll is for the target. The roll here is a 33. So in this case, on the raid chart, 33 says they're aiming at the shipyards in Newport News, Virginia, once again in Zone 6. Okay, so I've got all that noted in my sortie log and in my logbook. So at this point, we're back in our base at the USS Boxer in Zone 5 at sea. We are a Marine Corps pilot. There might be some slight differences in terms of flavor between Army pilots and Marine Corps. So we've got our incoming raid here at the Luftwaffe Azores base. Every time the raid moves, we've got a choice to lift if we want to lift off. I'll bring the weather back in shot when that becomes relevant again. So the raid moves into Zone 1. We now have a choice of whether we want to lift off or not, but because fuel is very limited, I'm going to take a lot of the same reasoning that I did in the last raid, and I'm not going to lift off yet. So the raid, actually I'm going to make a note of that in the logbook as well. As the raid moves to Zone 2, we once again have the option to lift off. Once again, I'm not going to lift off just yet. Raid moves to Zone 3. At this point, I will lift off, but I will have to spend a round getting airborne and getting up to cruising altitude. So now as the raid moves into Zone 4, I'm going to move in after them, but that's going to cost me a point of fuel. I showed that off last time, so I'm not going I'm not going to bring the plane back and shot again, especially since I don't want the chits to go flying on me. So now that we're in the same zone as the raid, we're going to roll on the interception chart once again. I'm also not going to bring that in shot. But that'll be a 2d6 roll to see if we make contact with anything. That is a 7. And once again, we've got another ME-364 coming at us. So we will bring the position chart back in shot. I'll grab my plane, and I'll grab the other chit for my plane, and now I've got to figure out where we're approaching this ME-364 from. We're approaching from approach 2 this time, so we're up here at what looks to be about probably 1:30, 2 o'clock-ish. The 5 on the D6 means we're coming at it high. So I'm going to use an extra chit just to indicate that we are high on that one. I was hoping there'd be medium. I was hoping there'd at least be high and low in here. There probably is, but I'm not warm to the idea of going digging for it. Yeah, I'm not going to bother with that right now. Okay, so we are at approach 2 high as far as where we're coming at it from. And we'll start combat off at long range from the bomber. So we always roll first. I'm going to use a bullet from the 50 caliber guns. Once again, what did I do with that chart? I was going to say I just had it in my hand. So now we're back to the fighter damage to bombers or fighters. We're rolling on the 6 firepower column this time once again. That's a snake eyes, which in this case, as we see, is a miss, but there's an asterisk next to it. So we have to check to see if there's a gun jam. So if only one weapon system fires, and we only have the one, the gun jams and no attack occurs. Oh, that's delightful. So we didn't even get the attack from that. Let me see if I can find a gun jam chit right here. Okay, so we've got no firepower right now, which means the gun jam. Let me see if there's anything. Nope. Well, we were actually, I almost forgot again. We have to determine where we're aiming first. So this time, we're going to say we're aiming at the airframe again. So I'm going to take the gun jam away and then re-roll that again. You are technically supposed to declare where you're aiming first. As always, I'm terrible about remembering that, but let's see what roll we get this time. That's a 10, which is actually a pretty good result, because in this case, we get 4 hits minus 1 for long range, so that's 3 hits. That's 3 airframe hits. So now we're back to bomber random damage. We're rolling a single D10 on the airframe chart. Alright, that's a cocked die. I'm going to re-roll that. That's a 3, so that turns into an airframe and a gunner hit. Yep, we can leave the 1 there. So the airframe for them can take up to 4 hits before being destroyed. We've got our own damage problems that we could be facing there. I'll talk about those when they become relevant. So hit 2 for us is an 8, which is a portside engine hit again. So we'll roll the same as before. 5, this time we're hitting an inboard engine. I'm just making a note here. Port inboard engine. And yep, we did remember to flip the ammo over. And then our last hit, a 9. This time we've got a starboard engine hit, taking the outboard engine. grab a damage chit for the starboard outboard engine. And now we're rolling a d6 for the defensive fire on the bomber. Once again, the ME-364 has a defensive firepower of 7. 1, 2, or 4 are effectively misses. That's a 3, so 2 minus 1 is 1 hit. So now we're rolling D66 on the fighter damage chart. That's a 61. That's a forward cannon hit, so now we're out anyway. So now the forward guns are unfortunately inoperable. So after any round of combat, we do have the option of breaking off, and given that we're not going to do any damage to this ME-364 at this point, we are going to break off. So we are going to break off and head back to base to land. So essentially the raid's going to get by us, but we're going to head back toward base. So first thing we're going to do, now that the weather's relevant again, I'll bring the weather section on the board in so we can roll for our weather. That's an 8, which is poor weather once again. Then we'll roll 2d6 to actually land this thing. Roll there is a 6, plus 1 is 7 because of poor weather. But once again, we are able to land safely. So another safe landing. But the Germans are determined to do damage to the American mainland. So did everything make sense on seeing how a sortie works all the way through, Doug? Hopefully you saw most of the gist of how it works, and I can answer any questions you might have. But I do want to get through. I would like to get through, ideally, 2 more sorties tonight, because I want to be able to get a month of sorties in tonight. So that was a pretty ugly sortie, but nothing we can do there. I'm going to try to go through a whole month of sorties so you can see how all the end of month stuff works as well. So I think we can put that right over here. I'll get the bombers out of shot for the time being. Okay, cool. Glad everything is mostly making sense. So let's go for another sortie. We're only about 30 some odd minutes in. And we got 2 more sorties to go. So I'm going to try to move a little bit faster on these next 2 sorties, since I want to make sure I get 2 in to be able to close the month out in the game. So let's see where we're going next, or where the Germans are going after next. A 35 says this time they're going for General Electric in Lynn, Massachusetts. So that's Zone 5. Which is actually our base. So we'll bring the incoming raid back to the Azores. Alright. So raid will move to Zone 1. We are not going to lift off yet, especially with the target being in... Oh, the target being in Zone 5. We're probably going to have to lift off sooner. Raid will move into Zone 2. We're still not going to lift off. Zone 3, now we are going to lift off as the raid moves into Zone 3. Takeoff's back there, so we are lifting off at this point. Raid's going to move into Zone 4. We're going to move in as well, but that's going to cost us a unit of fuel, and we have to see what we roll for interception. So actually the target zone now is Zone 5. 7 is another another Messerschmitt 364. we're seeing a lot of these early in the war. I can't say as I'm terribly surprised by that. So we'll bring that back to the side of shot. And now we need the position chart here as well. So let's see where we're coming at it from. Approach 7, which is down here at about 7:30, 8 o'clock-ish. So approach 7 and we're level. So we'll put that there. Okay. Now we'll start at long range, and I'm actually going to remember this time to designate that we are aiming at the airframe. We'll repair the gun being knocked out that we had. And I didn't flip the ammo back over, but we are going to use a point of ammo here. Excuse me. So we're looking at our 6 once again, 6 firepower, and our roll here is a 3 -1 for long range, so that's another 2 hits that we're starting with. So we'll roll a d10 for our airframe hits. That's a 3, which is an airframe and a gunner hit. So airframe and a gunner hit, and a 1 is another airframe hit. I can find another one right here. So we've already inflicted 2 airframe hits on this ME-364. So now we're rolling for Bomber's defensive fire. Once again, 1, 2, and 4 are our good numbers. That's a 6, which is not one of those good numbers, so that's 3 hits. So let's see what we're rolling for fighter damage this time. A 46. Forward guns are out again. Great. Obviously, these Germans seem to know just where to aim to cause us problems. $15. Landing gear. How fun. Landing gear is going to cause us problems, I know that. Yep, damage to the landing gear might make it have a crash landing, yada yada yada. +1 for damaged landing gear. That's delightful. And let's see what our last hit is. $62 is a tail hook. That's going to cause us problems as well. Let's see, tail hook. Navy planes have to use a crash barrier. So now we've got another +1 for a damaged hook. And with our forward guns out again, we're going to have to break off and try to land. So now we're rolling for the weather again. Hopefully we've got good weather because we're already facing a +2 modifier on our landing roll. That's a 5, so we've got good weather, which means we're on our 2d6 roll. The only modifiers we're facing are for our knocked out landing gear. That's a 7, +2 is 9, which is still enough for a good landing. Good weather and good landing. Well, we got away with one on that. We got away with it on that one, Doug. So yeah, we were able to get that one down on the ground. But it did look a little bit dicey there, especially with both the landing gear and the tail hook getting knocked out into next week. So yeah, we dodged a bullet on that one. And we are not having a good... We're actually not having a good career at all. We haven't faced much so far with Shield, who's our pilot. You can see we've shot down all of Bubkus so far. The way I'll mark it off is I'll mark a circle around the target when we actually shoot something down. Which we're not doing a whole lot here so far. Let me look at my research upgrades, see what I might what I might want to, what I might want to start researching into. So one last sortie for the month. That'll probably be very short, most likely, but let's see what we get here. For where they're going. 13 is out to Fort Monmouth in Little Silver, New Jersey. Okay, we've got the target zone out there. Incoming raid will move over to zone 1. I'll repair everything over here. Yikes. And we are off once again on the last sortie of the month, which will also be our last sortie for this game session. Raid moves into zone 1. We're not going to lift off. Zone 2, no liftoff again. Raid moves into Zone 3. We are going to lift off this time. Raid moves into Zone 4. So will we, which will cost us a point of fuel. And we have to roll for interception. That's a 9, so we actually have something different coming at us. This time we've got an FW300 coming at us. So let me see. Probably on the back of this one. Yep. Here we go. FW300. So now, ooh. Yikes. We got a tougher bird coming at us this time with a defensive firepower of 12. This one's probably going to hurt. Okay, this is going to be problematic, but let's see where we're coming at it from. Alright, that's approach 10, so we're coming at it from vertical dive. Right. I believe we only get one roll at this at vertical dive. Let me just double check here. Let's see. Interception, no. Bombs, combat passes. See, 7.1.10. Okay. Maybe not. I was expecting their... Let's see, position. No. I guess I was expecting it to be one round if you're coming at it from vertical dive, or vertical climb for that matter. Unless there's something I'm missing there. Not needed for approaches 9 or 10, but that doesn't exactly tell me. I'm going to go with that there's... Oh, wait. Interceptor, vertical, climb, or dive. One round at medium. Okay. So the fighter does the following package if a GP result is obtained. 1 hit each to random wing, airframe, gunner, random engine, bomb bay, yada yada yada. Okay? So it looks like we get 1 round at medium. So we'll spend our ammo for that at 6. So we need our fighter damage to bombers or fighters chart. So we're looking at 6 firepower once again. No modifiers because we're at medium range. That's a 10, which is 4 hits this time. Alright, so now we're rolling for, and I just did it again. We're aiming at the airframe. That's an 8, which is still 3 hits, as we can see here. So only the 3 hits. First hit from the airframe is a 3. That's another airframe and gunner. We're probably not shooting this thing down by hitting the gunner or by hitting the airframe. Next hit is a 9, which is a starboard engine hit. So we are hitting. That is the starboard inboard engine. This time there's only 2 sets of engines. All right. And our last hit is an 8. That's a port side engine. The port outboard engine. So that one's been hit. Which means now we have to roll for bomber defensive fire. This time, we're looking at a defensive fire of a 12. So, of course, we roll a 6, which is 5 hits with firepower 12. That's delightful. This sounds like a very easy way for everything to go completely sideways on us. Let's see how bad the damage is here. That's a 16. Our tail hooks hit again. So that's another +1 on our landing. Well, we'll call that a regular tail hit. A 36. Controls hit. Controls. Oh, geez. +1 for controls damage. Place a. If all the pilots all the plane's control points are hit. So place a damage point marker per hit. Do I have another 1-2 available? I do not appear to. Alright, so here's how we're going to do that. I'm going to use a damaged for 1 on the controls hit. Okay, so that was a controls hit. Next roll. 34. That's another tail hit. Oh, it looks like there's a separate mark for the arrestor hook. So the tail's been hit. 4th hit. A 54. That's minor damage. We'll shake that one off. And our 5th and last hit is a 62. That's another tail hook hit, but since the tail hook's already been knocked out, there's no further modify. There's no second hit on the tail hook. So because we only had the 1 round, now we've got to go back and try to land this. And I believe we only roll for the potential planes being shot down if the... We only rolled for that if an engine got knocked out, right? Possible that if you, before you had to break off combat, use the, on a D10 roll of a 1, each engine out, not damaged. Okay, so we have to roll a D10 to see if this FW300 still makes it home on her. Okay, so that was a 4, which means it'll make it back. Not downed. But we do have to try to land, since we only got the 1 round. So we'll go back to zone 5. We'll turn around and head back for home. So now we have to roll for weather once again. A 3 is good weather, but we got a +1 on our roll because our tail hook got knocked out. That's a 6, +1 is 7. We've got another safe landing. Okay, so now we're at the end of the month, which means now we have to deal with all of our end of month details. So, first thing we have to do here, let's see, research track. Okay, so 1 decides how to direct research points. Okay, after the final sortie of each month which we flew, we're given 1 research point to allocate. Let's see. Okay, so now we have to decide where we want to allocate our research to. I think here we're going to allocate to advanced. Do we allocate first and then roll? Allocate to one of the 4 areas. Okay, so it looks like we allocate then roll. So I'm going to put 1 point into advanced ground radar, which will replace the no contact roll in zone 4, not zone 5. So now I'm going to roll a d6 for advanced ground radar and improved fuel tanks. We'll do black for advanced ground radar, white for improved fuel tanks. If either of these are 1s, we unlock the respective upgrades. And neither of them are. Of course they're not. And that looks to be everything here. So that will do it for this playthrough of Defending America, Intercepting the Amerika Bombers. I do really enjoy this game, even if I'm a little bit salty at how badly things are going for us so far. We've had 2 months of sorties, and we haven't been able to do much with it. But I do like... I guess that's kind of the nature of the beast with war sometimes, and some of the stories that we're telling here, where not everybody's going to get all the glitz and the glamour in war. And I do kind of touch on that subject as well as I'm playing This War of Mine by Awaken Realms. So, again, like the story that's coming in for this one, but I'm rambling a bit, so let's go ahead and wrap this video up. We've got a lot of great stuff still coming up on the channel. Friday I mentioned having a very important video coming up, and it's become even more important in the wake of my summer 2025 project being announced as being 2009-10 hockey season replay. So with that in mind, my pleasure to do the playthrough, Doug. As far as what's coming up on the channel, as I'm rambling a bit, but where I'm going is the video for Friday is going to be a ticker tape test of Inside the Crease hockey. Now, I'm not too worried about the game itself, since I only play the 3rd period of each game. But I want to make sure that when I add the ticker tape test in, when I add the ticker tape from Final Score Hockey by Downey Games, that it's not going to take a month and a week. Saturday, Mystical Munchies will continue out of the Can You Take the Heat cookbook with the dessert, Kane's Red Velvet Cake. As for Sunday, we're going to be playing game number 9 on my War Room list, as we'll be playing Space Empires 4X by GMT Games. Programming note about what's coming up next week. So on Monday, we're actually going to have a Monday night upload, which is technically a scheduled video. We'll be playing Star Realms from Wise Wizard Games on Monday, because on Friday, we're actually going to be doing Pinot with Phoenix for April 2025, and I can't believe that is coming up already. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications to get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care, everyone.